Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Marketing Your Practice podcast, the podcast where I have the pleasure to simplify the marketing and the mindset so you, the chiropractor, can increase your income, your impact, and your enjoyment in practice too. Today's episode is part 2, where we're exploring the 6 principles of influence and persuasion. These are directly from Robert Cialdini's book called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. Last week, we spent some time talking about reciprocity, scarcity, and authority. And this week, we're going to talk about consistency, liking, and social proof. Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, is really an exploration in the fields of marketing and psychology. It's examining the key principles that persuade people to say yes and how to ethically apply these in various areas of your life, whether it be our relationships, parents, spouses, and certainly in these episodes too, we're talking about how we can apply these at work. I want to double tap here as well and just talk about the difference between influence and manipulation. So I touched on this last week. We want to be using these pillars of persuasion and influence in win-win scenarios. So where the outcome is not only good for you, but more importantly, it should be at least as good, if not better, for the practice member. When we use these for manipulation, which you absolutely can, these work just as well for manipulation as they do for influence and persuasion. The outcome is way better for you than it is for the patient. Now, there's no long-term growth that will happen in your practice if you are manipulating. This is like cutting open the golden goose to see what's inside. You'll very quickly gather a reputation in your community as somebody that's ethically questionable. Okay, so there's a caveat before we dive into these. So let's start to talk about consistency. And I want to talk about consistency from 2 realms. But first, let me define why this is a pillar of influence and persuasion. The principle of consistency is based on our natural desire to align our actions, our commitments, and our beliefs and values. Okay. Now, once a commitment is made, we feel literally a psychological pressure to behave consistently with it. Okay. So in our context with this episode here, I want to talk about it from 2 points of view. So consistency in our behavior as a chiropractor, and then also encouraging consistency with our practice members. So when chiropractors are consistent with their actions, their communications, their services, it builds trust and authority, okay? Now, this will be consistently delivering high-value care. This will mean consistency in the way that your practice is open, how it shows up, its cleanliness, how the front desk answer the phone. All of those things there are really strong trust indicators. So just think about it. What is your consistency like in terms of, are you open consistent hours? I know some practitioners that if they don't have anyone booked in, they don't turn up. Okay, maybe the quality of care that they deliver at the beginning of the week is great, but as they get tired towards the end of the week, it starts to decrease. The fees that they're offering, this person has that deal, another deal going on over here. The recommendations that you give for some people is, wellness care, and for others it's not. Some people we start off on once a week if we think they can afford it. I think you know where I'm going there too. We're incredibly inconsistent, and this really robs your practice of trust and authority. And so you need to clean all that up and make sure there's consistency. Now, does this mean that we need to be, giving the same recommendation to every person? Of course not. They're always based on the person that's in front of you. But think about if you are changing your recommendations because of what you think that person can afford, and what you think that person values, that might be a signal of lack of consistency. Now, again, patient consistency. Once patients make a commitment, they're much more likely to behave in a manner that's consistent with that commitment. This consistency, again, is driven by an inner desire to be congruent. Now, we want to look at this from several different points of view, but this could be agreeing to a care plan. It could be following health advice. It could be commitment to regular appointments. Now, one of the things, I'm having an interesting discussion earlier in the week with a coaching client. And over the last 6 to 7 months, he's been much more consistent in the recommendations that he's been giving, making sure he's giving proper recommendations. Now, part of that is he has a fee plan that allows people to prepay their fees. And he's noticed that those practice members that prepay their fees, whether it be a block of 12 or 24 adjustments, are actually the ones that get the best results. Now, no surprise here. They turn up to their appointments because they've paid for them. They're more likely to do their exercises. They're more likely to push through any stages if they're not getting results in the first week or two. If they've bought a block of 24 adjustments, they're going to be in for the long haul. Now, this has given him the confidence now that when he's in a report of findings and he's offering his fees, he can look people in the eye and say, listen, to get the best results, or the practice members that get the best results here are the ones that prepay their fees. They get it out of the way, they turn up to their appointments, and they follow through. This, again, starts to be this positive cycle here that has more people prepaying their fees, which has more people getting better results, and onwards and onwards. Okay. Another way to think about this is making sure that practice members don't leave your practice without making an appointment when possible. Now, this is not always applicable to everyone if they've got shift work and things like that too. But we always encouraged our practice members to make sure they had an appointment in there and let them know, hey, listen, if you can't make it along to it, then you can cancel it. Just give us 24 hours notice. But if we can get that appointment time in there, it'll be at a time that's convenient for you. The appointment book fills up quickly. Okay, that's a sign of social proof. We'll talk about that in a moment. But if somebody has an appointment scheduled in there and it's in their diary, they're much more likely to turn up than if they don't. So there are several areas that we can kind of add this consistency in there. Care plans, making sure somebody has a follow-up appointment there. In part of our report of findings checkout, one of the things that we went through is our front desk staff went through a 3 yes process with regards to making sure that people came to their appointment. So we would say things like, if you're unable to come along to your appointment, can you give us a call? Yes, and they would wait for a yes. If we haven't heard from you within 10 minutes of your appointment time, we're going to give you a call and follow up just to make sure everything is okay. Is that okay? Yes. So there's the second yes. And then the third one is, if you're unable to, or if you miss an appointment or you cancel in less than 24 hours notice, I just want to let you know that we have a late missed appointment. We have a missed appointment fee or a late cancellation. Is that okay? Yes. So the consistency and letting them know what's going on and then following through with that meant that we had, or that minimized our missed visits. And if they were there was minimal fuss that went along with it, okay? So consistency also is important in our social media. Consistent in the message that we're sharing out there. If you're going to put a flag in the sand and say, listen, we are a pediatric nerve system, spine, vitalistic chiropractor there too, you need to make sure that you're consistent with that message, okay? If I see you at some stage talking about aches and pains, if I see all of a sudden next month you happen to be the expert on athletics, and then next month you're talking to me about laser and then about sort of stuff with my feet and orthotics, then there's no consistency there. Now, again, I don't mind if you're doing all of those things. They're all fabulous, but be consistent in your message is really important. Consistency and frequency also. So making sure that you're showing up regularly. If you're not, you're missing out on incredible amounts of trust factor. So consistency is one of those things that we can really easily clean up as well. Now, remember, it's not about asking for a big commitment for our patients. Little steps, a little commitment to begin with, and they can start to make bigger ones as they go forward. So an audit as you're listening to this, thinking through, where can I be more consistent as a practice member, as the chiropractor? How can we have our systems so we show up more consistently? And then again, how can I start to encourage consistency in amongst the practice members also? All right, let's talk about influence, or principle of influence number 5. And this is liking, okay? Now, the principle of liking rests on the natural human tendency that we're more likely to be influenced by people that we like or find appealing, okay? This likability can stem from various factors, such as shared interests, physical attractiveness, compliments, or cooperative efforts. So there are several things that go into liking. And again, we can learn to be more likable. And I want to share with you here 7 characteristics of likability. In fact, I've spoken about this several times throughout the podcast, but let's dive into them now underneath the context of this will help send more people or have more people move towards yes. Number 1 is authenticity. Okay, now this is good. This is basically, I'm saying be you, because being you is more likable. Inauthenticity, okay, or when we're being inauthentic, really puts up a whole bunch of warning bells. So authentic individuals are true to themselves. They aren't afraid to show the true colors. They don't put on facade or pretend to be someone that they're not. They're comfortable with who they are and they exude a genuine persona. I love authentic people. There's something incredibly attractive about somebody being happy in their own skin. The second characteristic of likability is empathy, and I think this is an absolute superpower. Again, all of these are developable. We can develop all of these. For some of you, these will come very naturally too. I feel like I naturally have a very strong empathic nature, but I've continued to work on it over time because of how powerful it is in helping to link me with regards to people. So empathic people understand and share the feelings of others. They're great listeners. They show a genuine concern for others, and they're able to put themselves in others' shoes and show great compassion. Now, you can see just how important this would be in our chiropractic practices, right the way from the initial consultation to the report of findings. When we have that ability to show great empathy, it connects us with people. It builds trust. It builds likability, okay? Number 3 is positivity. People who maintain a positive attitude, even in difficult situations, are often quite likable, okay? They look on the bright side of things and can uplift others with their optimism. Now, the research would suggest that we are born on a scale of different levels of optimism and positivity there too. Some of us, again, like myself, are naturally very positive. And Lauren, my beautiful wife, is not. She's naturally more pessimistic. Now, over time, she's had to work much more hard than I have at being more positive, but she has over time become a much more optimistic person. She loves being more optimistic. It's a nicer way for her to look at the glass half full than half empty. So again, if you're not naturally positive, know that you can work on it and become that way too. Humor, okay? Now, individuals who have a good sense of humor and don't take themselves too seriously are often more likable, okay? They can make people laugh and lighten the mood, which is often appreciated. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to be telling jokes to your practice members, but I think this idea of not taking yourself too seriously, the idea of a little bit of self-depreciating humor goes a long way to connecting us with people, okay? So we don't want to show up like we're perfect and holier than thou, but we can use humor. And if you're naturally a funny person, then you might want to add a little bit of that into one of the very first chiropractors, or the very first chiropractor that I worked with, an amazing guy by the name of Ray Henderson. There was just constant laughter that was going on inside of, I was adjusting the rooms next to him and all you'd hear was laughter. Now, again, some practice management teams would tell us that we shouldn't be doing that, but Ray's patients just loved the heck out of him, okay? It was a laugh a moment and he couldn't not help but tell jokes. Now, there was moments of seriousness in there, but humor was a strong point of his and he used it. So he was being authentic, okay? Characteristic number 5 here is confidence. People often admire those who are self-assured and confident, but not arrogant, okay? So arrogance is not confidence, okay? In fact, people who are arrogant lack confidence. We often mix that up there too, okay? Confidence can be shown at how you carry yourself, how you speak, and even how you handle criticism and failure. I think when we're confident, we're not going into practice to get our needs met. That's a really key thing that I see, particularly in many practitioners, often those that are new. We're going into with our patients to get our needs met, for them to tell us that we're enough. We're looking for them to reassure that we're okay. And when we build a level of confidence, we don't need that anymore. We don't need people to say, yes, we're not needy. We're not going in there to try and convince people of anything. And that level of confidence is damn attractive and it's very likable. Number 6 is respectfulness, being considerate of others' feelings, thoughts, and the ideas. This is a trait of likable individuals, okay? So they value others and they treat everyone with kindness and respect regardless of their status or their background. So respectfulness. And of course, number 7 here is reliability. So those that are reliable and follow through on their promises are seen as trustworthy and they're thus more likable, okay? So they stick to their commitments and they're always there when needed. Now, these are just 7 characteristics that I put together. Of course, there's several more, but have a think about it. Again, let me go over those briefly. There's authenticity, empathy, positivity, humor, confidence, respectfulness, reliability. And maybe as you listen to this now, I would encourage you to think about what are your strong suits, okay? And how can we go even deeper on that? But where's 1 or 2 of these that we could improve? How can I become more reliable? How can I have better follow through? Do I need some accountability? Can I get a role model to help me with regards to this as well? So these levels of likability will really help you become more influential and more persuasive in your practice. Now, one of the things along with this, in Robert Cialdini's book, there's a really fascinating little study that he refers to that was done by psychologists Barron and his colleagues in the Netherlands. Now, the research was designed to test how mimicking or mirroring someone else's behavior could affect the level of influence and persuasion. So basically what they did was this is people were at a restaurant and they had the person who knew they were in the study there too was taking orders. And when somebody said, for instance, I'll have a ham and cheese sandwich, hold the mayo. If the staff person reflected back to them the exact words, okay, so it's a ham and cheese sandwich, hold the mayo, they ended up getting a bigger tip than if they said a ham and cheese sandwich with no mayo. So languaging and mirroring and using the exact same words as the people in front of them actually led to a greater sense of likability. In this case, that was actually shown by higher tips as well. Now, where can we use this information for us as chiropractors? In the early days, I made huge mistakes with this. So even in the initial consultation, if a patient said to me, "Oh, look, I'm really looking forward to having my neck cracked. I think it needs to be cracked here," I would immediately say, "Hey, listen, we don't crack necks here at all. We adjust the spine." And I would go about using different language to what they did. And in many ways, I would make them wrong. Now, that's a really strong rapport breaker when I do that too, and it decreases likability. And as much as it was tough for me in the early days, I would mirror back to them. Okay, great. So you've got some discomfort in your neck there, and you're hoping that we can kind of crack your neck down the bottom there. Is that right? When I could mirror back to them the exact words. Now, over time, I absolutely wanted to let them know that we don't crack spines, that we adjust, and that there's a difference in it too. But that was something I wanted to do once we developed a relationship, once we had some rapport. So use the words, use the language, use the exact phrases that your patients use, and it will make you a lot more likable. Okay, so you can use this across your social media by showing more personality. So social media really provides an opportunity for us to share our personality. We should be sharing connection content, not just helpful content that's helping people with their health result. But we want to show our personality. What are your interests? What are your fears, frustrations? We can do this by showing levels of vulnerability. So we can be more likable by engaging with our followers, by responding to their comments, participating in discussions, and showing appreciation. So, okay, remember, genuine likability goes a long way. It's not just about being friendly, but it's about being empathic, respectful, and understanding towards your patients and your online followers as well. Your goal should be to create a positive, welcoming atmosphere that puts people at ease and fosters a strong, long-lasting relationships. Liking or likability is one of those pillars and principles of influence that you absolutely should be making the most of. Now, number 6 that we're going to go over here, the final of these 2 series, is social proof. I'm sure many of you would be aware of this beforehand, but the principle of social proof refers to our inclination to conform to the actions of others under the assumption that they possess more knowledge than we do, okay? So simply put, we look to others to guide our decisions and actions, especially in unfamiliar scenarios. So very often when someone is coming into our practice, it's an unfamiliar scenario. So we want to use social proof. So we could use this in our patient interactions if you're allowed to. Testimonials are a powerful, powerful form of social proof, okay? Because we get to see the experience of other people, okay? So this can particularly be helpful when explaining the benefits of chiropractic care without you just saying it as well. So we want to look at things. One of the statements that I would often do, again, if I'm going through a report of findings checkout, I might just say something like, what most of our practice members do is they book their appointments in advance. That way they get the days and the time that work best for them. So what most people do, that's a phrase of using social proof. If you're a practice that sees lots of kids, then just having photographs up on the wall of lots of kids or the sort of patient that you like looking after is a form of social proof. One of the other ways I used to use social proof is if I had a practice member ask me a question and I had somebody else, we had an open adjusting area, and I had somebody else in the area that could answer that question, I'd often go, "Hey, that's a really great question, Bill. Sue's had that same challenge there too, and she solved it. Sue, what are your thoughts on that?" And that way we could get an open discussion going on where it wasn't me telling them what they should be doing. Or they might say, "Hey, listen, I see lots of kids in here getting adjusted. Why do kids get adjusted?" That's a really great question. Let's ask Bill next to us. Bill brings his kids in, and then Bill could give his experience. And that social proof that came from that was way more powerful than me answering that too, okay? So again, on social media, if you can, you could share testimonials or positive reviews. You could also, again, because us Aussies here aren't able to do that, but we can build social proof by highlighting our involvement with local community causes, okay? So, do you sponsor local football teams? Are you giving money to charity as well? One of the ways I used to build social proof was the way I would introduce myself in my videos. So I'd often say, "Hey there, I'm Dr. Angus here from Life Chiropractic in Port Melbourne. And over the last 20 years, we've helped more than 8,000 patients." And off we'd go. So 20 years, 8,000 patients, that would build a level of authority and social proof as well, okay? Remember, social proof leverages the idea that people are more likely to do something if they see others doing it. So in the context of us and our chiropractic practice, this is, helping and letting other patients see what other patients are doing, okay? So if you can, have another practice member answer the question. If you can share testimonials, and absolutely do that. Social proof is a really, really powerful tool for you to be using inside of your practice. So let's do a brief summary of each of the pillars of influence, and then I'll give you some thoughts on where to move from here, okay? So the principle of reciprocity. Offering value can create a sense of obligation in others, okay? Implement this by providing valuable content or services like free health tips or information posts as well, or giving away bits and pieces inside of the practice. Okay, number 2, the principle of scarcity. So scarcity, exclusivity, and urgency can powerfully influence decision-making. You utilize this by highlighting limiting availability or unique aspects of your services. Number 3, the principle of authority. Now, showcasing your authority and expertise can build trust and credibility. Regularly share professional achievements, accreditations, and valuable insights related to your chiropractic care. Perhaps you're going to develop your own signature system. The principle of consistency. Being consistent in your actions and your communication fosters trust and commitment. Encourage consistent behaviors in your patients by getting them to make small commitments and following up on them. The principle of liking or likability. Likability can enhance connections and influence decisions. Focus on building genuine relationships, showing empathy, and creating a warm and friendly environment with your patients. And finally, the principle of social proof. Okay, so people are influenced by the experience of others. Share testimonials, positive reviews, and success stories to build credibility and reassure potential patients. Now, as I mentioned right back in episode number 1 of this, the idea isn't for us to, in every paragraph and every interaction, for us to maximize all 6 of those pillars of influence, because it'll feel false and inauthentic, and it'll actually have the opposite. But there'll be natural times that you want to push towards social proof. That being said, likability is always a trump card that you should be playing. When can I start to push towards authority? When is there appropriate times for me to be using scarcity? Now, what I would encourage you to do from these episodes is start to look at areas where are you literally leaving money on the table, okay? Are you not using any forms of social proof? Are you not maximizing your likability by really showing off your authenticity? Is the consistency of your practice, is it very poor? Is it time that you started to offer some prepaid fees and getting people to pre-book their appointments? But just look from here at 1 or 2 steps that you can go and move forward. You're going to hear me saying this a lot on the episodes going forwards. To know and not do is to not know. So I'm not entertaining enough for you to just listen to this for the sake of it, okay? You've got a scrouchy old Aussie voice here. I want you implementing this stuff because it'll help out with the promise of this podcast, which is to help you increase your income, your impact, and your enjoyment in practice. So having mastery over these 6 principles of influence and persuasion will absolutely move you towards all of those. And your community needs you to master this, needs you creating more win-win scenarios so you can help people get the results that they want by sometimes influencing them to do the things that they don't want to do along the way. Okay. All right, folks. That's it for this episode. As always, thanks for all that you do. Keep saving lives. Your community very desperately needs you. See you back here real soon. Bye. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out my Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work with you to help you apply it, implement it, and systemize it. The Community Influencer Group Coaching Program is designed to help you increase your practice income, impact, and enjoyment. Join me over at anguspyke.com/join. That's anguspyke.com/join. I'd love to see you there.